You know, a perennially mediocre old guy like you should be fired pronto. I'll speak to the higher-ups about it. Being related to one of the board members, it'd be a breeze to get rid of someone like you." The man in front of me was completely looking down on me, laughing derisively. With the way he's acting, it's clear that we can't expect him to have a change of heart and work diligently. It's tough to crush a young person's future, but it's for the greater good of the company. Funny you should say that. I was thinking the same thing. Saying so, I gave him a wide, reassuring smile. All the while, I was thinking about how to teach him a lesson. Just pondering on that alone. My name is Robert Stevens. I might be nearing 70, but I'm not ready to lose to the younger generation just yet. I make sure to go for walks to stay healthy and always keep up with the latest information using my tablet. Thanks to that, my health checkups are great, and I'm in top form when it comes to my golf hobby. The stationery company I built from scratch has a few hit products, and business is fairly good. I'm grateful to my employees for their daily efforts. Besides golf, I have another hobby. It's playing harmless pranks on those around me. Of course, something small enough not to be a bother, but capable of bringing a smile to anyone caught up in it. I try to keep it moderate, or else I'll get scolded by my secretary or my son, who is the executive vice president. I love seeing people's surprised faces. Even more so, I love seeing them smile. Keeping employees happy. That is my goal. These days, I've mostly left the running of the company to my son, who is the executive vice president, and my role has been reduced to just reviewing and approving. While I don't want to be outdone by the younger generation, I understand the need for generational change, especially considering the target demographic for our products. With my son handling the business side, I focus on improving the company's environment. A good work environment breeds good work. Wearing a toupee to cover my thinning hair and changing up my glasses and mask. No one realizes I'm the president when I'm cleaning around. I also sometimes disguise myself as a temp worker to observe how the employees work. Seeing everyone work so diligently and passionately is truly heartwarming. I'm planning to visit the sales department for inspection today. With my salt and pepper wig and fake glasses, I'm a completely different person. I wonder what fun things will happen this time. Well, although inspection is the official reason, I'm excited as I head to the workplace. I've explained the situation to Jason, the head of the sales department. My little hobby is well known within the company, and it seems everyone is anxiously wondering when it'll be their turn. But I have no intention of stopping. After all, it seems to be adding a nice spice to the workplace atmosphere, so why not? My seat is at the very end, closest to the door. In other words, it's considered the least prestigious spot. I always find myself assigned to such a place. Upon taking my seat, the young man next to me promptly greeted me. "You're Robert, right? My name is Alex. I'm looking forward to working with you starting today." The young man, speaking in a calm tone, properly greeted me, even though I was just a temp. "Likewise, I'm looking forward to working with you." After exchanging greetings, Alex started explaining the work to me. His explanations were clear and concise, and he frequently checked to ensure I understood everything. I intuitively knew this young man was competent in his job. Morning. Just then, a lethargic voice came from the direction of the door, and a young man with brightly colored hair sluggishly walked in. He heavily sat down at the desk in front of Alex and stretched out with a big sigh. "Good morning, Robert. This is Michael. He's a colleague from my cohort, but..." "Who's this old man?" "Say temp." Well, I'm the ace of sales here, so don't hold me back." I was taken aback by his haughty attitude, but Michael, the young man, yawned loudly without paying any heed to those around him. Michael comes from a family with a board member in our company, and is considered to have a promising future. Alex explained with a wry smile. So, he's a case of nepotism gone wrong, I thought to myself, though I didn't voice it out loud. I just nodded without changing my expression, deciding to observe him a bit more. Michael's work ethic was worse than I had anticipated. He spent very little time at his desk and was often found slacking off elsewhere, browsing magazines at a nearby bookstore or lingering at a coffee shop. Sometimes, he was even found napping or playing games in an unused meeting room. But that wasn't all. He would delegate his tasks to Alex and then take credit for the results. Alex would just give a bitter smile and say, "It's always like this," but if this was the norm, it was definitely a problem. Feeling the need to speak up, I decided to confront him while he was slacking off, pretending it was a coincidence. Today, the first conference room was empty. I pretended to clean and tried to open the door, but it was locked. However, as the president, I had the master key. Carefully unlocking the door without making a sound, I found Michael lying across several chairs. He seems to be sound asleep, courteously wearing an eye mask. Around him were scattered a gaming console, a phone, and several books, making it clear what he had been up to. Wondering how to wake him up as he slept with his mouth wide open and snoring, I decided to start by calling out to him. "Michael, please wake up." But he showed no sign of waking. Resigning myself to the situation, I pulled a balloon from my pocket and inflated it. The reason I carry such an item is to have it on hand for an opportunity to surprise someone. Using a paperclip I happened to have in my pocket, I poked the balloon. The balloon burst with a loud pop, startling Michael awake. "What the?" "Good morning, Michael." I greeted him with a smile, and although he seemed taken aback for a moment, he quickly reverted to his usual smirking expression. "What, it's just the temp old man. Scared me for nothing." He attempted to go back to sleep, so I spoke up. "What about your work? Isn't there a big deal coming up soon?" "Leave that to Alex. He's so earnest it's almost stupid. Even if I don't do it, he'll take care of everything to avoid any inconvenience to the other party. I'm not cut out for boring stuff like making documents. It's about putting the right person in the right place, right? I'll handle schmoozing with the clients. Just smile and flatter them, and they won't feel bad. Plus it boosts my own stock, right? I just need to give it my all on the day of the event. The grunt work is someone else's job." "I see. Is that so?" "So, it seems he's not particularly useful in negotiations or presentations and merely tags along." I wondered if his supervisor was aware of this behavior and immediately doubted it. This type always has a good front. They act arrogantly towards peers or those they consider beneath them but ingratiate themselves with superiors and clients. It's easy to imagine. Indeed, until I witnessed it myself, there had been no reports of any issues with his work attitude. Unbothered by being caught, Michael intended to go back to sleep, lying down on the chairs he had arranged. "I'm gonna sleep some more. Can you clean another room, and don't make noise, okay? Are you not going back to work?" "What, old man, you giving me orders? As a temp, haha, that's ridiculous." He started laughing, holding his stomach as if mocking me. "My uncle's on the board of this company. Someone like you could easily be fired, you know." "Is that so?" "The fact that you're still a temp at your age is just pathetic. You're incompetent, right? Don't act all high and mighty with me. You and I are not in the same league." His dismissive attitude was infuriating, but I restrained myself. Taking my silence as consent, he continued unabated. "You know, an incompetent old-timer like you should just be fired as soon as possible. I'll talk to the higher-ups about it. Being related to a board member, it's easy for me to get someone like you fired." The man in front of me laughed derisively, completely looking down on me. Given his attitude, it was clear he was beyond any hope of reform. It's tough to crush a young person's future, but it's for the company's good. Coincidentally, I was feeling the same way. Saying that, I gave him a broad smile. How should I give him a taste of his own medicine? Just pondering that alone. Just so you know, then get lost. Oh, and it's useless to tell anyone. I'll have you fired in no time. Your future is in my hands. Don't forget that. Okay. Leaving him laughing in the conference room, I walked away. My mind was consumed with thoughts of how to discipline him. The big deal was about getting a national chain of large-scale variety stores to prominently feature our new products. The main target demographic was young women. The design is simple, with a wide variety of colors to make it easy to customize. It's possible to match items like pencil cases, pens, binders, and scissors within the same line, all priced affordably for middle and high school students to easily purchase. Alex was the one loading a few samples into a company car. Michael, who was supposed to accompany him, was nowhere to be seen. I approached Alex and offered to help carry the samples. "Oh, I'm sorry about that." "Not at all. I was told by my supervisor to accompany the cargo." Although no such instruction was given, a white lie can sometimes be excused. I'd explain it to Jason, the sales department head, later. As we were doing this, Michael arrived, slightly past the scheduled departure time. Dressed neatly, Michael could pass for a competent salesman if he kept silent. Well, a salesman shouldn't be silent. Without apologizing for his tardiness, Michael greeted us briefly and climbed into the back seat, immediately engrossed in his phone. Used to this behavior, Alex didn't say anything and just got into the driver's seat. I took the passenger seat, and we headed to the office of the large variety store chain. "If the old man's here, I don't need to go, right? You two can handle it. I'll wait here." After parking the car, Michael suddenly suggested he stay behind, lounging in the back seat and pulling out a gaming console from his bag to start playing. "But we told them it would be you and me attending, didn't we?" "Shut up. Just say I had a sudden illness and the old man came instead. I'm not really into the receptionist at that place anyway." "Didn't you try to talk to her last time we were there?" "Did I? Well, I'm not going anyway. Just handle it however. I don't see the point in putting so much effort into work." With that, Michael ignored any further attempts to speak to him, engrossed in his game. Resigned, Alex sighed and said, "Let's go," leading the way. I followed him, carrying a large box. The president of the client company, Mr. Anderson, is an old friend of mine, and I've visited his company several times. As expected, the receptionist recognized me and panically started to stand up, but I gestured for her to stay quiet with a look, and she nodded, turning pale. Alex seemed puzzled by this, but when the representative appeared, he silently followed. Robert, I mean. Never mind, it's nothing." It seems Alex is quite perceptive. His negotiation went smoothly, and we successfully sealed the deal. Back at the car, Michael was still engrossed in his game. Alex knocked on the car window and called out to him. But Michael barely acknowledged, just lifting his head. "So, went well without me, right?" "Well, yes, but..." "Hey, old man, don't tell anyone I skipped the negotiation. You don't want to get fired, right? Being homeless at your age would be the worst." Michael's laughter indicated he was mocking us completely. I've witnessed the decisive moment when he was slacking off at work, and I can also obtain testimonies. I decided to summon him the next day. The following day, for Jason from the sales department, I called Alex and Michael to the president's office. Of course, today I was without a wig and dressed in the formal suit I wear for presidential duties. I couldn't wait to see their reactions when they discovered my true identity. As I waited with a smirk, the door knocked and the three entered. "Hello, glad you could make it." I smiled warmly, but Michael's demeanor didn't change much from usual. He seemed unaware of my real identity. Alex looked tense and worried, while Jason seemed confused about why he was there. Yesterday, I heard we secured a big deal, and it was thanks to your efforts. I wanted to express my gratitude. At this, their expressions brightened, relieved. That's expected. It's rare for someone to be called into the president's office for such a reason. They probably hadn't heard of it happening before. Mr. Stevens. Michael stepped forward, seizing the moment. Thank you for your 2 kind words. I've been preparing for this contract for days. His bold claim made my smile stiffen. Unaware of my reaction, Michael rambled on. This Alex here can't do anything without me telling him. What do you call it? Instructed dependency syndrome. So, I took the lead in planning and strategizing. Michael made these claims while eyeing Alex and addressing me. Jason looked bewildered at him, saying nothing. Feeling like I'd seen enough of their relationship, I sighed and spoke up. Is that so? Actually, the client company contacted us, who did the explaining during the negotiation. I did. Michael eagerly raised his hand. I also heard there was someone who stayed in the car playing games. Oh, that was this guy. I told him to act properly, but he wouldn't listen. Michael's ease in deflecting his own actions onto Alex revealed his true character. He seemed to only think about himself. Really, Alex, I thought you were very conscientious. Jason, this guy only pretends to be diligent. I always end up cleaning up his messes. No, that's not true. Alex tried to protest, but fell silent under Michael's glare. He must be feeling threatened with the possibility of being fired as well. Regardless, he seems overly timid, but as the president of the company, I should step in and handle this situation. I've heard about it. Some folks occasionally nap in the meeting rooms, and there are employees in our company who linger too long in coffee shops during work or browse magazines in bookstores, causing inconvenience. I've been thinking that we need to address this issue. Yes, that's this guy. Michael pointed at Alex. Alex looked down resignedly, clenching his fists. That's strange. Alex always reports his whereabouts properly. There shouldn't be any times when we don't know where he is. What? When I was in the sales department, Alex was always hard at work. It didn't seem like he had any time to slack off. At my words, Michael's eyes darted around in confusion. No way. Why would Mr. Stevens? When were you in the sales department? Michael tilted his head in utter confusion, to which I responded with a smile. Still haven't figured it out. Look. Saying so, I put on a wig with streaks of gray hair. This is, of course, something I wore while infiltrating the sales department. And as I changed my glasses, Michael's face turned pale in shock. What? You're that old temp guy? Michael, watch your language. Jason interjected, cutting off Michael's words, and Michael covered his mouth with both hands. He must have realized he was in the wrong. It's only natural after all the lies that were told. Yep, I'm the old temp guy. It seems you didn't notice. But you have hair, Mr. Stevens's. Don't you say another word. It seems Alex noticed, though. Alex, suddenly brought into the conversation, hesitantly opened his mouth. Yes, I didn't mention it on purpose since it seemed you were trying to keep it under wraps. I nodded at his words. Alex is indeed excellent, very perceptive, unlike someone else here. Looking at Michael, I saw him pale-faced, opening and closing his mouth, as if trying to come up with an excuse. But he was seen through completely. Any excuse would be futile. So, Michael, you can fire me anytime, right? Because your uncle is on the board, you think your promotion is guaranteed. Strange. In our company, no one can be fired or promoted without my approval, and certainly not just because of family connections. I should probably have a word with your uncle then, shouldn't I? Well. I stood up and opened the door to the adjacent room, which was connected. Inside, my son, the executive vice president, and his uncle were waiting. Michael, what have you done? I may have referred you at the time of hiring, but that was it. I don't have any say in personnel matters. And we are strangers at the company, as I've told you. Using my name to threaten your colleagues is outrageous. As soon as the door opened, his uncle started scolding him fiercely. Michael was already on the verge of tears. Michael, anything you want to say? It's clear from observing you these past few days. Everything you've said was a lie, wasn't it? It was Alex who prepared and succeeded in the business negotiations, not you. On the contrary, you were the one slacking official. The accusations you made against Alex were false. It was you who were doing those things. As I confirmed slowly, Michael slumped to his knees. He was aware of his wrongdoing but thought he could deflect it onto others. Such a despicable mindset. I need to think about how to reform his character. But first, there are others I need to speak with. So, Jason, can't you manage your subordinates? If you had been keeping an eye on Michael, perhaps he wouldn't have gone this far. Yes, you are absolutely right. You knew Alex was overburdened with work, didn't you? Why didn't you investigate? Yes, it's entirely my fault. I thought as long as the work was getting done, it was fine. Understanding your subordinates' work is a critical part of being a supervisor. You should reflect on this as well. I'll inform you of your disciplinary action later, but don't worry, you won't be demoted. I'm looking forward to seeing how you'll improve from here on. Yes, I'm very sorry. Jason offered a deep apology. Taking responsibility is part of being a boss. I've always believed this myself. If you're going to give your subordinates freedom, you must be prepared to accept the corresponding responsibilities. Jason, who is not young himself, probably had been fortunate with his subordinates until now. He likely never imagined he would be in a situation where he'd have to take responsibility like this. Then, I turned to Alex. Alex, your work ethic is commendable. However, if you keep taking on everyone else's burdens, you'll eventually burn out. Don't hesitate to ask for help when you need it. That's what you should take away from this experience. Stoicism is not always a virtue. Remember that. Yes, thank you very much. Alex looked me in the eyes and responded firmly. There was a spark in his eyes that made me believe he would continue to do well in the future. Sales department, let's review everyone's workload. Actually, this applies to the entire company. We need to check if the workload is unevenly distributed or if anyone is being overworked. Let's investigate this. Hearing this, my son, the executive vice president, nodded and began to give instructions to someone. I'd like to say dismissed, but I haven't lectured Michael yet. From tomorrow, you'll be my direct subordinate. I'll have you work closely with me. Wait, directly under you? Seriously, isn't that a promotion? Michael's face brightened up, a stark contrast from his earlier demeanor. But here comes the twist. No, because from tomorrow, I won't be the president anymore. Everyone except Executive Vice President Stevens widened their eyes in surprise. This was news I hadn't yet announced to the company. I wanted to see everyone's surprised expressions. Seeing their shocked faces here, I felt satisfied. I'm stepping down from the presidency. From tomorrow, I'll be rehired in a different position. Michael, as my direct subordinate, let's work hard on maintaining the company's environment. Environment maintenance. Like cleaning, managing supplies, and so on. Tomorrow, I want to start with weeding the flower bed by the entrance. I'm counting on you. Oh, and your salary will be performance-based. The harder you work, the more you learn. Really? For real? Michael could only repeat the same words. After all, a performance-based salary means if you slack off, you won't earn a dime. I decided to closely supervise him and thoroughly reform his character from tomorrow. Time passed, and after revising our workflow, the company became an even better place to work. Alex no longer had his achievements stolen by Michael and was making a name for himself. He was the top performer in the company, and other companies specifically requested Alex for business dealings. I secretly hoped that he could become a right-hand man for my son. After stepping down as president, I could devote myself to my hobby of observing the company. Occasionally, I would discover issues and quietly inform the relevant people or take action to solve them. It's fun, almost like being a detective within the company, Michael would say. Despite my initial expectations, Michael diligently completed tasks like cleaning and weeding. He found the visible progress of cleaning and beautifying spaces surprisingly enjoyable. According to his uncle, Michael was spoiled as a child and had never done chores, but he turned out to be quite suited for these tasks when treated as job responsibilities. With a relatively straightforward nature and the right mix of reward and discipline, Michael might grow into a significant asset. Today, we're maintaining the flower bed in front of the entrance. We seasonally replace and prune the flowers to delight visitors to the company. Taking care of these flowers is mostly a hobby of mine, but some people look forward to seeing what blooms next, which really motivates me. Mr. Stevens, I'm exhausted. I'm going to get heat stroke. Oh my, is it that time already? I tend to lose track of time when I'm engrossed, so it's really helpful when Michael reminds me like this. My son, now the president, and the rest of my family are grateful to him for inadvertently taking care of my health. Let's take a break. Here, Michael, look at my hand. As I said this, I magically produced a piece of salt candy from my seemingly empty hand. It's a simple magic trick, but his exaggerated astonishment makes it fun for me as well. Wow, Mr. Stevens, your hands are magical. Seeing him laugh like that brightens my day. The phrase "the right person in the right place," which he mentioned before, comes to mind now. Being reassigned under me might not have been what Michael initially wanted, but seeing him work so happily now, it might have been for the best. Had he stayed in sales, things might have turned out much worse. Within the framework of a company, everyone has a role to play. I believe fulfilling that role diligently is crucial as a professional. To ensure that all employees work comfortably, we as management must continue to put forth effort. After all, our people are our greatest asset. Even though you are at a barbecue joint, you can't even afford the fancy cuts of meat, right? Pickles are more than enough for the poor. My former classmate, a banker named David, looked down on me with disdain and aggressively spilled a plate of juicy pickles. The plate overturned right onto the red cardigan I had gifted my mother. Do you even realize what you've done? Apologize right now, and I might still forgive you. Why should I, an elite from Evergreen Bank, apologize to a loser like you? I was just sharing some pickles, wasn't I? He didn't even try to hide his smirk. I see. I understand your thoughts clearly. Mom, let's move the $30 million to another bank. What? He stood there, dumbfounded, unable to grasp the situation. He never took me seriously, but things dramatically changed the next day. My name is Scott, a 36-year-old former banker. After my father passed away when I was in high school, it was just my mother and me. I managed to graduate from college using scholarships, but I quit my job soon after I started working. Since then, I've settled into a new job and life has finally stabilized. Today, to show my appreciation and celebrate my mother's 60th birthday, we came to her favorite barbecue place. When I gave her a red cardigan as a birthday present, she was so delighted she put it on right there. While we were grilling tongue and short ribs, my mom was happily crunching on cucumber pickles. Even though it was her big day, and I wanted her to enjoy more of the meat she loves. Thank you, but I really love these pickles at the barbecue place. Don't worry, I'm also enjoying the meat, she said, continuing to smile and enjoy her meal. If my mom is happy, that's what matters. So we continued to eat joyfully until suddenly, the private room's door slammed open. "Hey, isn't that Scott? I haven't seen you since you fled from work, but you seem well." The voice belonged to David, my former classmate and colleague at the bank. David and I were classmates in high school, constantly competing for the top grades. However, I was always slightly ahead, which unilaterally earned his dislike, making this unexpected reunion quite awkward. Back in high school, he always treated me as a rival. "Don't act snobby just because you're good at studying. This time, your guess just happened to be right." He was as smart as me, but his persistence in always losing to me probably turned into spite. He even went to the same university and ended up working at the same local evergreen bank, sticking to me all the while. Our relationship changed after 3 years on the job. When the branch manager changed, the business strategy was overhauled, pushing us to aggressively sell products and services. I kept wondering if these products and services were truly beneficial for our customers. As I made proposals to loyal customers and secured contracts, I began to doubt whether I was genuinely considering the customer's perspective. These doubts weighed on me even as I got used to the job, and then the transfer order came. I knew regular transfers were meant to prevent misconduct, but the real problem at that time was my mother. People often say, "Don't take your parents for granted." My mom had always been healthy until she was diagnosed with a serious illness. Shocked, I rushed home where my mother greeted me with a tired smile. "Thanks for coming even though you're busy, but don't worry. It was discovered early enough that surgery should ensure there's no danger to my life." I was relieved at first. But as we talked more, I realized the situation wasn't as optimistic as it seemed. Although the surgery had a high success rate, my mom would need to recover at home for quite some time, making it difficult for her to even manage daily activities, let alone go shopping. Assistance was necessary for trips to and from the hospital, and should her condition worsen at home, immediate care would be required. In other words, someone would need to assist my mom throughout the day. After discussing with my mom's primary doctor, it was clear that living alone during the day would be challenging. Considering the situation with my mom, I decided, after much deliberation, to resign from the bank. I had felt uneasy about the bank's policies, and moving to a distant location, leaving my mom alone, was out of the question. When I submitted my resignation, my supervisor got disappointed and tried to persuade me to stay. Though I felt guilty for leaving a place that had been good to me, my mom's health was my priority. Thus, I left the bank after 3 years. I've never regretted my decision, but for David, it seemed to be the first time he thought he had beaten me. The day before my last day, he came to my desk, sneering as he spoke. "Lucky for you that your mom got sick just in time." His unexpected and cruel words shocked me. I was already tense with my mom's upcoming surgery. I couldn't understand how he could say something so cruel at a time like this. But he just watched my speechless reaction and started laughing disdainfully. "Don't make excuses. You just couldn't handle the bank's quotas and ran away because you couldn't cut it in sales, right? Is that all you came to say? Bad timing. I've got handover work to do, so please move aside." I managed to reply, holding back my anger. He scoffed and continued, "Being smart at school doesn't mean you can hack it in the real world. You've never faced failure before, so you were using your mom as an excuse to run away." Without the will to respond, I stayed silent, and he got even more aggressive. "Must be nice, huh? Quitting before everyone realizes you're a failure who can't meet company standards. What are you going to do now? Hide at home with your mom?" "Yes, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm staying home to take care of my mom, and I won't be working outside anymore, so leave me alone." I lied hastily to get rid of him. He burst into laughter as if he'd heard the funniest joke, then announced loudly across the office, Hey, hear that? Scott's going to become a shut-in from now on. He's retiring from society to be a bum. In the past, his smirking face would have left me feeling bitter. But now, I see it as my final liberation from this unwanted, inseparable relationship. With that, I calmly continued preparing the handover documents. After that, my mom successfully underwent her surgery and recovered at home as planned. She regained her health completely, and I began working again, establishing a new lifestyle. One day, we decided to celebrate her 60th birthday and her recovery at a barbecue restaurant, a special treat. She was happy with the present I prepared, and we were having a good time when he suddenly barged in. I saw you when you went to the restroom earlier and thought it might be you. Turns out it really was Scott the loser. He smirked as he threw snide remarks at me. Despite my mother being present, he barged into our private room to harass us, showing that his character hasn't changed a bit. Today is my mom's 60th birthday. We're here to enjoy this as a family, so please. I tried to speak calmly, hoping to get him to leave. But seeing an opportunity to tease me, his eyes gleamed with mischief as he decided to stay. Are you really eating pickles at a barbecue place? Isn't that just the appetizer? Oh, I get it. Since you declared you'd be a shut-in and not work, you must be broke now, he said, then smirked and left the room. Relieved he'd given up, I was momentarily at ease until he returned to our private room. He began transferring cucumber pickles from his own plate to ours without permission. You guys are really saving me here. I can't stand cheap tastes like this. I was about to throw these pickles away, he said. Hey, don't put things on our plates without asking, I protested, but he just looked down on us, grinning. Be thankful. You quit the bank and have no money, right? Even though you're at a barbecue place, you can afford the expensive meat, right? That's enough. I raised my voice, but he continued to look down on me condescendingly. Since you can afford to pay for the meat, I figured I'd share the pickles. Pickles are more than enough for the poor. His voice, filled with malice, mercilessly bombarded my mother and me. I really wanted to retaliate strongly, but I managed to restrain myself. Today is a special day, my mother's 60th birthday. If I let anger ruin this joyous occasion, it would only trouble my mother, who was enjoying herself until now. With that in mind, I quietly urged him to leave. Can you please just leave now? Oh, not running away today. Weren't you the one who quit the bank job crying because it was too tough? Looks like you should be the one to leave this restaurant, spineless Scott. His taunting only made my blood boil. But causing a scene here would only trouble my mother and the restaurant. I just run into him today. David is someone I shouldn't even be meeting anymore. He's like a stone on the roadside, a traveler you pass by on a trip, never to see again. No matter how much he insults me, I just need to let it slide for now. If I don't respond, he'll get bored and leave soon. Thinking this, I remained silent, but this only seemed to irritate him further. Frustrated, he furrowed his brow and picked up the plate of pickles he had added earlier. Then he deliberately spilled the juicy pickles all over. The plate overturned right onto the red cardigan I had gifted my mother. Yikes. Oops, sorry about that, ma'am. My hand slipped, he said, offering an insincere apology with a smirk, as my mother's cardigan got drenched in pickle juice and cucumber slices. I quickly stood up to ask a server for a towel, but he grabbed a napkin from the table first. I'll wipe it off right away. Oh dear, my hands just slipped. While saying this, he laughed loudly, crushing the cucumbers with the napkin. The smell of crushed cucumbers filled the private room, and the brand new cardigan was left stained. Oh, it was a gift for my 60th birthday. Haha, sorry about that, seems like I made it worse. He continued to laugh as if watching a funny skit, enjoying my mother's distress. At that moment, my anger shook me to the core, I could ignore whatever was said to me, but I couldn't forgive him for troubling my mother. David, are you still working at Evergreen Bank? At the same branch as before? Yes, that's right. Unlike when you left, I'm about to be the branch manager. I'm the top rising star and elite among our peers now, different from someone who quit halfway through. His voice echoed in the restaurant, attracting the attention of the staff and other customers who peeked into our private room. As he continued to laugh, I stared him down, giving him one last chance. Do you even realize what you've done? Apologize right now, and I might still forgive you. Huh? Why should I, an elite from Evergreen Bank, apologize to a loser like you? I was just sharing some pickles, wasn't I? As he said this, he pointed at the pickle-stained cardigan and didn't even try to hide his smirk. I see. I understand your thoughts clearly. Mom, let's move the $30 million to another bank. What? He stood there, dumbfounded, unable to grasp the situation. Meanwhile, my mother looked confused at my words. What's going on? We've always wanted to repay your gratitude by dealing only with Evergreen Bank because you were working there after graduation. But a person from Evergreen Bank has insulted you and me. I kept my anger in check, but it seemed my irritation was evident to both my mother and him. I continued, staring at his stiffened face. Listen, David, we both have social standings and we're not kids anymore. If you dare insult us like this in public, you must be prepared for the consequences. So what? He responded brusquely, showing no intention of apologizing. I sighed deeply and said firmly, I'm done dealing with you. I've decided to transfer the $30 million we have at Evergreen Bank somewhere else. After this, you'll probably understand what kind of a mess you've really caused. What are you talking about? You're saying you have $30 million in deposits. That's not even a good joke. Go ahead and cancel it if you can. It seems that he still doesn't believe I have a $30 million deposit at the bank. It's embarrassing that you'd lie like that. Don't come crying to me when you regret it. If you can withdraw $30 million from our bank, I'll applaud you, but that's impossible for a shut-in poor like you. We'll see who regrets it. I've only told the truth. Look forward to what happens tomorrow. With that, I left him sitting there as I got up from the table. As we paid and left the restaurant, he continued to mock us. Do you really think I'd believe such a pathetic bluff? I'm looking forward to seeing what happens to you guys. Ignoring his continued taunts, we headed home from the barbecue restaurant. He thought it was all a lie and didn't take it seriously, but the next day, everything changed. I heard from a former colleague that the Evergreen Bank was flooded with calls right after they opened the next day. Some people even went directly to the bank to inquire, and the staff was overwhelmed with responses. David, who had arrived at work as usual, was summoned by the furious manager, James. What's all this commotion about today? Did something happen? What have you done? James, usually calm, yelled as if he had lost control of himself, veins standing out on his forehead. Taken aback by the intensity, David apologized while trying to understand the situation. The phone lines are almost crashing because of the inquiries about what you did at the barbecue restaurant yesterday. What? I did go out for barbecue yesterday, but... Confused, he wiped the sweat off his forehead. Then, James showed him a video on his phone. It seems you caused a disturbance at the barbecue restaurant yesterday. There's a video of it online now, and it's causing a huge problem. The video is online. He grabbed the phone and focused intently on the small screen. The video showed the exchange between him and me from the previous day. Why is there a video of this? I don't know anything about it. But that's you in the video, David. Calling someone a poor and mocking them. What were you thinking? James's words made him spit in defiance. I just ran into an old friend by chance and got carried away joking around. Is it wrong to eat barbecue? And why is this video spreading? The fuss was so great that a customer at the restaurant recorded everything. Then it was posted online as a scandal involving a bank employee. At James's words, he began to tremble, turning pale. The video had already been viewed over 1 million times, and deleting it now wouldn't suppress the issue. My elite life is over. How can I solve this problem? Your elite life is over. That doesn't matter. What you did is a major issue, but the person you insulted was none other than Scott. As they were talking, other bank employees came to call James and him. My mother and I had just arrived at the bank. As I had declared the day before, I was there to close the account and withdraw the $30 million. However, the counter staff informed me that such a large transaction couldn't be processed there and asked us to come to a private room where James would join us. The bank employee who guided us knew about yesterday's incident, so they decided to have him join the discussion too. David, who rushed in with James, began sweating profusely the moment he saw my mother and me. When James heard from the bank employee that I intended to withdraw the entire $30 million and close the account, he tried his best to persuade me to reconsider. Please reconsider. Can you at least tell us why? The reason? He knows it well. Yesterday, when I told him I would close the account, he readily agreed. He must have remembered his defiant words. He looked around uneasily and then took a few steps towards me to speak. But before he could say anything, James dropped the thunder. What have you done? Angering our top client like this is irreversible. Scott is a top client. That must be some mistake. He's a quitter who left this bank halfway through. James, you're making a terrible mistake. James's anger seems incomprehensible to him. He smirks as if he's heard a joke and speaks dismissively. Scott is just a poor man. He certainly doesn't have $30 million. James, his face turning red with anger, got even angrier with him as he continued to make excuses. It's not a misunderstanding. He's saying he wants to withdraw $30 million from his savings. This man is a CEO of a major IT company. James exclaimed, finally realizing the truth of my words. After leaving the bank, I started managing assets from home and saving funds, which I then invested in a startup. By networking with talented entrepreneurs, I eventually founded and now run my own IT company. Hearing my background from James, he stood frozen, his face pale and silent. I spoke slowly to him. Now do you understand that I wasn't joking? I can't trust a bank where people like you work. But I didn't know. I'll apologize if you want. Just please don't withdraw your money from the bank. He was still condescending, disappointing not just me but also others. James, who had witnessed everything, looked at him with disdain and anger. I thought you were a competent banker. What a disappointment. As you heard, ridiculing a customer and showing no remorse questions your integrity. I cannot entrust my assets to this bank. I reiterated my demand to withdraw the $30 million, and James sighed deeply, reluctantly agreeing. Thus, I withdrew all my assets from Evergreen Bank. He resisted to the end, shouting, "How can someone like you, who ran away from a tough job, succeed enough to have $30 million? Aren't you just a coward?" But I just shook my head calmly. Why do you criticize leaving so much? Assessing the situation and choosing a different path is not something to be ashamed of. But you abandoned your job and lost to me. Leaving from the workplace is proof of no responsibility. It seemed that being a banker was the only thing he could boast about as a victory over me. Hearing him insisting, I felt pity rather than anger. It's great to work hard with responsibility, but no one wants to live with regrets by suppressing what they truly want to do. Regrets? I recalled the day I decided to resign. Faced with a promotion to a distant location and my mother's surgery, followed by difficult home care. When these two futures were presented to me, I chose my mother's health. There are people who will follow the path you aspire to, and there are those who will live like me. Everyone should choose the life that suits them best. You have to decide your own life. How is that different from being selfish? I work hard. I am going to be the most successful person in this bank. I am great. He kept repeating his argument, almost screaming by the end. When someone's thoughts become so rigid, advice from others no longer reaches them. I left the bank feeling sorry. A branch of Evergreen Bank closed down. Months later, I was driving my mother to the hospital. Her illness had fully improved, and now she only needed regular checkups, which was a relief. On the way to the hospital, we passed the location where Evergreen Bank once stood. The grand building had been demolished, leaving a clean slate. That David person was your classmate, wasn't he? I'm sorry my 60th birthday celebration triggered all this. No, it's okay. He's always been like that, and it's good that the branch closed down. My comment about the closure wasn't a joke. This information comes from a new acquaintance in the finance industry. According to him, ever since James took charge, the branch's reputation among customers had steadily declined. James had favored David, a high-performing banker, and together they changed management policies. Even during my time, we were forced to sell unnecessary products to customers. After I left, their methods became more blatant, treating customers who refused products as poor and behaving arrogantly, while being overly courteous to big clients. This unfair treatment had been problematic for a while, and there were frequent complaints against Evergreen Bank itself. With a recent scandal, the bank could no longer protect James and David. As Evergreen Bank was already reducing staff by merging branches, they quickly decided to close the branch where David worked. Other bank employees were given placements elsewhere, but James and David were not offered decent transfers. Assigned to a department that only organized old documents all day, David, with his bruised pride, resigned voluntarily after enduring about a month. I deserve a much better job, he declared, slamming his resignation letter down before leaving the bank. James tried to cling to his job, but after David left, he was solely blamed for the branch's closure. Unable to withstand a cold treatment from colleagues and bosses, he followed David in resignation. Afterwards, James searched for a new job but couldn't find employment within the same industry due to his tarnished reputation. Nevertheless, needing to make a living, he eventually found a job as a bank security guard. Once a manager pushing unnecessary products for performance, he now finds himself humbly responding to customers' complaints. On the other hand, David's life took a harsh turn after his wife divorced him and took their children with her. Forced to sell his home to pay for the divorce settlement and property division, he now lives alone in a cheap apartment. Currently, he works as a part-time employee at a local supermarket, struggling to make ends meet and pay child support. Interestingly, his manager and supervisor are former high school classmates whom he used to mock, but now he has no choice but to diligently follow their orders. He is assigned to the deli section, where he sells items like potato salad and pickles daily. However, still clinging to his elitist attitude, he grumbles, "How can someone like me deal with something as poor-looking as pickles?" and neglects proper stock management. This results in poor sales, leading to frequent lectures from his once classmate, now supervisor. One can only hope that he will reflect on his behavior and change his way of living. As for my mother and me, we decided to redo her 60th birthday celebration. This whole experience made me reconsider what I truly value. I was reaffirmed that resigning was the right decision, and I felt deeply content with my choice. Mom, happy 60th birthday again. Without you, I wouldn't have had the chance to close that account. Let's continue to enjoy life in good health. Thank you, I'm proud of you. My mother replied, smiling gently, obviously pleased. Motivated by these sentiments, I resolved to keep following the path I believe in. As I reflect on these thoughts, I open my computer again today to complete my work with pride.